I always knew my sister was competitive. Growing up, it was like being in a never-ending race where I didn't even realize I was running. I'd get a B+ on a test, and she'd boast about her A. I'd learn a new song on the piano, and she'd master it in a day. At family gatherings, it was always, "Isn't Ella so talented?" while I quietly sipped my soda, trying not to feel small. But despite it all, I never imagined she'd go this far. It was just a week before my wedding when I noticed something was wrong. My wedding dress, an intricate lace gown that I'd spent months saving for, wasn't where I left it. I tore through my closet, the panic swelling in my chest, until I finally called my mum. "Mum, did you take my dress to get it pressed?" I tried to keep my voice calm, but I could hear the desperation creeping in. Her answer was just as confused as I felt. "No, honey, I haven't touched it. Did you check the guest room?" "I did, and the basement and the laundry room, nothing. The dress had vanished." I tried to tell myself I was overreacting. Maybe I misplaced it or brought it somewhere without thinking. But as the day wore on, my anxiety only grew. By evening, I was scouring my entire house, every nook and cranny, even the attic that no one ever used. Still nothing. When I couldn't take the frustration anymore, I called Ella. She answered on the second ring, voice sweet as syrup. "Hey, bride-to-be, what's up? Have you been over to my place recently?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Nope. Why?" "My wedding dress is gone," I said, every word tasting like disbelief, "and I have no idea where it could be." There was a pause, just a beat too long. Then she laughed. "That's crazy. Did you check your car? You always leave stuff in there." That laugh. It was so familiar, like every time she'd broken one of my things growing up and insisted it wasn't her. A slow, nauseating realization started to creep in. The next morning, I got a call from my friend Macy, one of my bridesmaids. She sounded hesitant. "Hey, is Ella okay?" "What do you mean?" Well, Macy hesitated. She posted a story on Instagram. It's her trying on a wedding dress. And it looked a lot like yours. My stomach twisted into knots. I pulled up Instagram, heart pounding. Sure enough, there was Ella twirling in a mirror, the delicate lace and embroidered bodice unmistakably mine. The caption read, "Guess who's playing dress up," with a winking emoji. Anger bubbled up so intense it left me shaking. I knew Ella liked attention, but this wasn't just thoughtless. It was cruel. I didn't even call her. I couldn't. Instead, I drove straight to her apartment. When she opened the door, I didn't give her a chance to play innocent. "What the hell, Ella?" I spat out, trying not to scream. "Why are you wearing my dress?" Her eyes widened in faux surprise. "Oh, that old thing. I just thought it would be fun to see how it looked. You know, just for fun." I couldn't believe it. "Ella, it's my wedding dress. Do you have any idea how much that meant to me?" She shrugged, twirling a strand of hair around her finger. "Relax. I was careful. Besides, I figured you wouldn't mind. We're sisters, right?" That's when I saw it on the dress. A smudge of lipstick on the bodice, the lace slightly frayed at the hem. My chest tightened. "You ruined it." Ella had the nerve to roll her eyes. "God, you're so dramatic. It's not like I can't just buy you a new one." I didn't even know how to respond. I just turned and walked out, tears prickling at my eyes. The whole drive home, I kept telling myself to breathe, to calm down. But nothing helped. The dress I had chosen so carefully, that I had dreamed about since I was a little girl, was now a mess. Back at home, I stared at the photos on my wall, me and Ella as kids smiling with popsicles. Me holding her hand when she scraped her knee. And now she'd stolen something that meant the world to me, like it was just another competition to win. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to just let it go and find a way to fix the dress. But another part, the part that had always been quiet, always taken the high road, was done being walked over. I wasn't sure how or when, but one thing was clear. Ella wasn't going to get away with this. Not this time. I spent the next few days in a fog, my mind replaying the image of Ella in my dress over and over. I couldn't escape it, the delicate lace I'd chosen so carefully, the one I'd imagined walking down the aisle in now, stained with her lipstick and twisted by her thoughtless actions. But as the initial shock wore off, my anger hardened into something colder, sharper. Ella had crossed a line and I wasn't going to let her get away with it this time. I started by calling the bridal boutique where I'd bought my dress, hoping against hope that they had a second one in stock. I knew it was a long shot, but I had to try. "Hi, this is Emily," I said, forcing my voice to sound steadier than I felt. "I bought the Valentina lace gown from you a few months ago. I was wondering if by any chance you have another one in stock." The woman on the other end sighed. "I'm so sorry, but that dress was part of a limited run. We only carried one in each size. I can recommend a few similar styles if you'd like." I felt my chest tighten. "No, that's okay, thank you." I hung up, staring at my reflection in the hallway mirror. The girl looking back at me seemed smaller, almost defeated. But no, I wasn't going to let this break me. Then, just as I was about to call Macy for emotional backup, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from my cousin Sarah, who lived 2 states over. "Sarah, hey, just saw Ella's Instagram post. Did you guys decide to do a double wedding or something?" I blinked at the message, my blood running cold. Double wedding? What was she talking about? I quickly pulled up Ella's profile again, dreading what I might find. And there it was, a new post, just an hour old. Ella standing on the steps of a chapel, the same dress flowing around her, her fiancé Matt grinning beside her. The caption read, "Testing the wedding vibes early, so excited for our big day." My hands shook as I stared at the photo. She wasn't just playing dress up, she was turning my wedding into her pre-wedding photo op. I wanted to scream, to throw my phone across the room, but instead I just sat down on the edge of my couch, staring blankly at the wall. My sister wasn't just messing with my dress, she was trying to overshadow my entire wedding. That's when the memories started flooding back, the little moments I'd brushed off, the snide comments I'd let slide. Like when I told her about my engagement and she barely looked up from her phone. Or when I asked her to be my maid of honor and she sighed like I was asking her to clean my whole house. Or the time she joked about how I'd probably need a lot of makeup to look good in white. I felt my heart harden. No, this wasn't just about the dress. It was about every time Ella had tried to overshadow me, every time she'd taken what was mine without a second thought. I closed my eyes, breathing deeply. This had gone far enough. Ella needed to learn that actions have consequences, and I was the only one who could teach her that lesson. But I couldn't just confront her. That would be too easy, too predictable. No, I had to make sure she felt this on a level she couldn't ignore a lesson, she couldn't just brush off as my being dramatic or jealous. That night, I pulled out my wedding planning notebook, flipping through the carefully organized pages of guest lists, seating charts, and flower arrangements. I found the section I was looking for, the one labeled family. I spent hours that night making lists, drawing connections, tracing lines of loyalty and secrets. Ella had always been the golden child, the one our parents doted on, while I played the role of the quiet, dependable one. But I knew things about her, little secrets she'd let slip over the years, things she thought I was too naive or too trusting to remember, like the time she lied to our parents about being at a girls' night when she'd really gone to Vegas with a guy she'd just met. Or the fact that her credit card bills were always suspiciously high for someone with a modest salary. By the time I closed my notebook, the first hints of dawn were creeping through my blinds. I felt a strange calm wash over me. Ella had always seen me as the pushover, the sister she could overshadow and outshine. But she had underestimated me, and that was about to become her biggest mistake. I wasn't just going to take my wedding back, I was going to take back my entire life. The next morning I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. If Ella wanted to turn my wedding into her personal fashion show, then I'd make sure she felt the spotlight in all the worst ways. I started by combing through my phone for every saved conversation, every petty insult, every passive-aggressive text she'd ever sent. It was like flipping through a mental scrapbook of all the times she'd tried to put me down. The time she'd mocked my new job at a family BBQ, the snide comments about my weight, the eye rolls whenever I talked about my fiancé Jake. I found an old group chat from last Christmas where Ella had accidentally mentioned my surprise engagement party in front of Jake's ultra-conservative grandparents, even though I'd specifically asked her to keep it under wraps. Her response when I confronted her later, "Oh, sorry, I thought they already knew, my bad." I gritted my teeth, the old frustration flaring up again. Ella had always loved turning my happiest moments into her little power plays, but this time she wasn't just messing with a party, she was messing with my future. I opened my laptop and scrolled through my old emails, searching for the one Ella had sent me when she'd gotten her current job. It took a few minutes, but I found it. She'd forwarded me her offer letter, bragging about her new title and the massive signing bonus she'd negotiated. I'd been genuinely happy for her then, but now I read the email with a different perspective. I remembered something she'd said at a family dinner a few months back after one too many glasses of wine. She'd leaned in close to me, her eyes sparkling with that dangerous, too honest glow, and whispered, "You know, I fudged a few details on my resume to land that job. Everyone does it." I had brushed it off at the time, assuming it was just one of her drunken exaggerations. But now it felt like a thread worth pulling. I dug deeper, pulling up her LinkedIn profile, cross-referencing it with the dates and titles she'd mentioned over the years. And there it was, a glaring discrepancy. She'd claimed to have been a lead marketing specialist at her last company for 3 years, but I distinctly remembered her complaining about being stuck as a junior for most of that time. I felt a small, wicked smile creep onto my face. It was a long shot, but if her entire career was built on this kind of fluff, it wouldn't take much to bring her perfect little world crashing down. I spent the rest of the day digging. Old social media posts, LinkedIn connections, even some archived company newsletters I found on her former employer's website. And the more I found, the clearer it became. Ella's entire professional life was a carefully curated illusion. The icing on the cake came when I stumbled upon a review from one of her former colleagues on Glassdoor complaining about a certain overly ambitious self-promoting team member who took credit for projects she barely worked on. The review didn't name names, but the timeline matched perfectly. I leaned back, staring at the web of deceit I'd just uncovered, my heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and vindication. For years, Ella had painted herself as the perfect daughter, the shining star of our family. She'd always made me feel small, like I was the side character in her main storyline. But I finally had proof that her success was built on half-truths and carefully edited narratives. The thought of confronting her directly was tempting, but I knew that wouldn't be enough. Ella was a master manipulator, the queen of turning every confrontation into a pity party for herself. If I came at her head-on, she'd just twist the story, play the victim, and turn our family against me. No, I needed something more public, something she couldn't talk her way out of. I started sketching out a plan, my heart racing with every step I outlined. It was risky, but if it worked, it would be the kind of takedown she'd never forget. I'd make her feel the same shame, the same humiliation, the same gut-wrenching sense of betrayal that she'd inflicted on me for years. And the best part, I wouldn't even have to lie. I'd just shine a spotlight on the truth she'd worked so hard to bury. As I closed my laptop that night, a strange sense of calm settled over me. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was in control. Ella wanted to steal my spotlight. Fine. I'd make sure it burned her. The following week was a blur of quiet, calculated moves. I played the dutiful sister, sending Ella polite texts about wedding plans, making small talk with her over our family group chat, and even liking her latest Instagram post of her trying on yet another white dress, complete with the caption, "Just a little pre-wedding glow." Every time I hit the heart button, a small, satisfying chill ran down my spine. She had no idea what was coming. I took my time, building my case piece by piece. I reached out to a few of Ella's old colleagues on LinkedIn, posing as a recruiter. It was surprisingly easy to get people to talk when they thought a potential job offer was on the line. One former co-worker, a woman named Lisa, was particularly chatty. Oh, Ella-Lisa's message popped up late one night. Yeah, I remember her. Ambitious, but not exactly a team player. She took credit for my work on more than one occasion. Can't say I was sad to see her go. I couldn't help but smile as I read the message. I didn't respond right away, letting Lisa's frustrations simmer. People love to vent, I reminded myself. After a few days of back and forth, I had enough to confirm what I'd suspected. Ella's stellar career was built on a foundation of exaggerated job titles, stolen credit, and just enough truth to keep her from getting caught. With the professional side of my plan coming together, I turned my attention to her personal life. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. I went back through Ella's Instagram, paying closer attention to the dates on her posts. It was a small detail, but it mattered. There was a photo of her in New York, tagged just a month before she supposedly started her big marketing job. In the caption, she'd gushed about finally making it in the Big Apple, but the timeline didn't match the dates on her resume. She couldn't have been working in California full-time if she was starting fresh in New York. I dug deeper, finding old tagged photos from mutual friends, some of whom hadn't bothered to hide their posts from me. One in particular, a blurry wine-soaked group shot from a friend's birthday party, had Ella front and centre, clinking glasses in what looked suspiciously like a farewell party. The date was a full month before she claimed to have started her current role. I took screenshots, my heart pounding with every click. I knew it wasn't enough to completely ruin her, but it was a start, and it gave me the confidence to push a little further. That weekend, I paid a visit to my parents. I made small talk, helped my mum with the dishes, and let my dad drone on about his golf game, all the while subtly steering the conversation toward Ella. "Have you talked to Ella lately?" I asked, keeping my tone light as I dried a stack of plates. My mum sighed, shaking her head. "She's always so busy these days. I worry about her, she works so hard." I forced a sympathetic smile. "Yeah, I've heard. It must be tough managing such a big team." My dad looked up from his paper, his brow furrowing. "Big team." She told me she was just part of the marketing department. I paused, letting the silence hang in the air for a moment. "Oh, really?" She told me she's the lead now, in charge of a whole division. My mum glanced at my dad, a flicker of confusion passing between them. It was a small crack, but I felt the thrill of it. Ella's carefully constructed image was already starting to crumble, even if they didn't fully realize it yet. I left that night with a renewed sense of purpose. I wasn't just going to expose Ella. I was going to make her watch as the pedestal she'd put herself on collapsed beneath her. I spent the next few days finalizing my plan. I had everything I needed to lay out her professional lies, but I still needed one more piece to truly twist the knife. I went back to the old group chat, scrolling through years of messages until I found it a conversation from 2 years ago where Ella had casually bragged about how she'd borrowed money from our parents to cover a few months' rent in New York, promising to pay it back once her new job kicked in. I forwarded the screenshots to my personal email, feeling a strange detached sense of satisfaction as I hit send. By the time I was done, I had a full digital dossier on my sister. Her inflated resume, the lies about her job, the borrowed money she never paid back, and a timeline of her social media posts that painted a very different picture from the one she'd sold to our family. I leaned back, staring at the neatly organized folder on my laptop. Ella had stolen my dress, my moment, my spotlight. She'd tried to reduce me to a footnote in my own life story. But now I held the pen and I was about to rewrite the ending. The week leading up to my wedding, I barely slept. Not because of pre-wedding jitters, but because I was fine-tuning every detail of my plan. Ella had always been the star of our family, the golden child who could do no wrong. She thrived on the spotlight, fed off the admiration and envy of others. If I was going to break her, I needed to shatter that image in a way she couldn't recover from. I spent one of those sleepless nights crafting an anonymous email. It was a carefully worded message stripped of any personal tone or obvious fingerprints. I attached the screenshots I'd collected, the incriminating LinkedIn discrepancies, the Instagram timeline that didn't add up the angry messages from her former colleagues. I even included a few financial documents I'd managed to get my hands on, showing the unpaid loan she'd taken from our parents. Subject: employee integrity concerns, confidential. I made sure to send it to every department head at her company, as well as the HR team and even the CEO. I didn't expect them to fire her on the spot, but I knew they'd have to investigate. And in the cutthroat world of corporate marketing, a single whisper of dishonesty can be enough to end a career. The morning after I hit send, I felt lighter, like I'd finally taken a deep breath after years of holding it in. The day before my wedding, I got a frantic call from Ella. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hey, what's up?" I answered, forcing a note of casual cheer into my voice. "Did you say something to Mum and Dad about me?" she demanded, her voice sharp and panicked. I frowned, keeping my tone deliberately confused. "What are you talking about?" "They just called me freaking out about some money I supposedly borrowed years ago. Why would you bring that up now, of all times?" I took a slow, calming breath. She had no idea. "Ella, I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe they just remembered on their own." She huffed, clearly frustrated. "Whatever. Just stay out of my business, okay?" She hung up before I could respond, her words still ringing in my ear. I let out a slow, satisfied breath. I hadn't even needed to nudge that particular domino. The truth had a funny way of slipping through the cracks all on its own. The morning of my wedding dawned clear and bright, a perfect sunlit day that felt almost too serene for the chaos I was about to unleash. Ella showed up at the venue, all smiles, her arm linked with Matt's, as if she hadn't spent the past few months treating my wedding like her personal fashion show. She even had the audacity to wear a white dress, though thankfully it wasn't my gown. I felt a flicker of irritation, but I forced myself to stay calm. I had bigger plans than a petty dress code violation. I watched her work the room, laughing with my bridesmaids, charming my in-laws, and even posing for a few pictures. It would have been impressive if I didn't know what a fraud she was. As the ceremony time approached, I took a deep breath, smoothed the lace of my freshly restored wedding dress, and gave my reflection a small private smile. Ella thought she'd stolen my moment. She had no idea I was about to steal her spotlight for good. When the time came, I walked down the aisle, every eye in the room on me. For once, I felt truly seen, not just as Ella's little sister, not as the quiet, dependable one, but as the bride, the centre of the universe for one perfect moment. After the vows, the applause, and the carefully choreographed walk back down the aisle, I finally found Ella in the crowd. She was beaming, her eyes bright with the confidence of someone who thinks they've won. I leaned in close, hugging her just tight enough to feel her stiffen. "I hope you're ready," I whispered into her ear, my voice dripping with a satisfaction I didn't bother to hide. "This is the last time you'll be the centre of attention." I pulled back, catching the flicker of confusion in her eyes, before I turned away, letting her stand there frozen in place as I joined my new husband on the dance floor. I had one final move to make, and it would be the one she never saw coming. The reception hall buzzed with the clinking of champagne glasses, the low murmur of polite conversation, and the occasional burst of laughter as my friends and family gathered to celebrate my new marriage. I moved through the crowd, smiling and accepting hugs, my mind laser-focused on the final act of my plan. Ella had taken her seat at the head table, beaming like she was the one in the spotlight. She looked beautiful, I had to admit, her hair perfectly curled, her makeup flawless, her white dress shimmering under the twinkling lights. But I knew something she didn't. The stage she'd placed herself on was about to collapse. I waited until dinner was over, until the wine had loosened tongues, and the crowd was buzzing with just the right amount of warmth and alcohol. Then I stepped up to the microphone, tapping it lightly to get everyone's attention. "Hey everyone," I said, my voice steady despite the nerves bubbling in my chest. "I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for being here today. It means the world to Jake and me." I glanced over at my husband, his supportive smile, giving me the last bit of courage I needed. But before we get to the dancing and the cake, I have a little surprise, a sort of gift to my sister Ella. Ella's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing slightly as the guests murmured in curiosity. I felt the electric crackle of anticipation spread through the room. I wanted to thank her for all the love and support she's given me over the years, for being my maid of honor, for always being there when I needed her, and for inspiring me to become a stronger, more independent woman. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. Ella smiled nervously, clearly unsure where this was going. But more than that, I continued, my voice sharp and clear. Now I wanted to give her a chance to shine like she's always wanted. So I've prepared a little presentation. I gave a small nod to my friend Macy, who was standing by the DJ booth. She hit a button, and the projector behind me flickered to life, casting a bright light onto the screen. The first slide was simple, a collage of childhood photos. Me and Ella at the beach building sandcastles. Us in matching Christmas pajamas, our arms around each other, gaps in our teeth where baby teeth had fallen out. A collective awe went up from the crowd, and I saw Ella visibly relax, her shoulders dropping. Then came the next slide. A screenshot of Ella's inflated resume, her fake job title highlighted in bright yellow. The murmurs grew louder, a few confused whispers cutting through the warm, wine-soaked haze of the room. The next slide featured the LinkedIn discrepancies I'd found side by side with timestamps from her Instagram posts, proving she'd lied about her job history. Ella's face went pale, her eyes darting around the room as the realization sank in. I felt a small, wicked thrill as I clicked to the final slide screenshots of the texts she'd sent me over the years, the little digs about my weight, the snide comments about my relationship, the blatant attempts to undermine me at every turn. The room had gone deadly silent. I could feel every eye turning from the screen to Ella, the golden child who had just been knocked off her pedestal. I let the final slide linger for a moment, then cleared my throat. "I just thought you all should know what an accomplished, driven and creative woman my sister really is," I said, my voice dripping with faux sincerity. "After all, it takes a special kind of person to create an entire persona out of half-truths and borrowed titles." The silence shattered as the whispers and gasps erupted. Ella shot up from her seat, her face a mask of shock and fury. But before she could say a word, I stepped back from the microphone, locking eyes with her for one final satisfying moment. I felt the weight lift from my shoulders, the years of resentment and quiet suffering evaporating under the heat of the spotlight I had just stolen back. Ella had stolen my dress, my moment, my trust. But I had taken back my power, and I had done it in the one place she had always sought to outshine me in the public eye. I turned away, slipping into Jake's waiting arms, as the music started up again, the beat thrumming through the floor beneath my feet, grounding me in the sweetest victory I'd ever tasted. I didn't look back, not at Ella's stunned face, not at the guests whispering in her direction, not at the flickering images of her lies projected for all to see. For the first time in a long time, I was free. End of story. Thanks for listening. Story 2. At our last family reunion, my name tag said Marcus, second best after Tyler. I stared at it like it had personally insulted me, because in a way it had. My mom walked by with a plate of deviled eggs and said with a smirk, "Oh, come on, Marcus. Don't pout. We all know who the real star is." She gave Tyler a wink like they were in on some private joke. He winked back. Everyone chuckled except me. It wasn't a joke, not really. Not when Tyler had been crowned the family favourite since kindergarten for, what exactly? Good hair being 6'3". Getting suspended in high school for being too honest. The backyard was done up like a small wedding. White folding chairs, custom banners, floral centerpieces. Each table had a printed seating chart with name tags that felt more like judgment cards. Tyler's name tag said, "The Legacy." Mine said, "Second best after Tyler." Even the dog had a name tag, Milo, Tyler's best friend. I wish I were kidding. I didn't make a scene. I never do. I just sat at the side table and watched Tyler get handed a champagne flute like he just cured cancer. Then came the real moment. Mom got up, clinking her glass with a spoon like we were about to toast royalty. "We all know who's carried the family name with pride," she beamed, "and your grandfather would be so proud to know that his prized 1970 Chevelle now belongs to the one who truly earned it." She turned to Tyler. He didn't even fake modesty, just smirked and stood up as the crowd cheered. I clapped too, quietly, because clapping was easier than crying. Then Mum walked over and handed me a shoebox, not metaphorically, an actual cardboard shoebox. "For you," she said, forcing a smile. "Some tools your dad found in the shed. You like to fix things, right?" I opened it. A rusty wrench, an old tape measure, and a handwritten note that just said, "Time to get your act together." I don't remember much of what happened next, just that it suddenly got very hard to breathe. That night I didn't go home. I went to the office. Yes, that office. The one they think I use as a glorified IT closet. What they didn't know, what no one in that backyard full of praise-hungry relatives knew, was that I wasn't just some computer guy. I was co-founder and 45% owner of the fastest-growing logistics startup in the city. We had just been valued at $28 million and I was about to be named interim CEO. But sure, give Tyler the car and me a toolbox, classic. The next morning, my cousin Kayla texted me. Sorry about yesterday, that was rough." I replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Because what do you even say to that? Thanks for noticing the slow assassination of my self-worth. Growing up, Tyler was the dream. Tall, confident, reckless in a charming way. He got caught cheating on 3 different high school tests and still got a graduation party bigger than my college send-off. When he crashed Dad's truck into a ditch, it was boys will be boys. When I got a B+ in math, "Marcus, we expected more from you." At 17, I was tutoring 2 kids working part-time and applying to scholarships in secret because we couldn't afford college. Tyler got a gap year trip to Europe. It wasn't just favoritism, it was systemic. I wasn't raised. I was recruited into a role, the fixer, the background character. You know what the final straw was? Last fall, I found out Mum had been telling people I still lived paycheck to paycheck and refused to settle down. Meanwhile, I'd paid off their mortgage 3 years ago without a thank you card. That's right, I paid the final $42,000 on their home when Dad got sick and Tyler was between opportunities. And they still saw me as the fallback. 2 days after the reunion, our board met. The former CEO was stepping down to start a non-profit. They looked at me. "You've got the team's trust. You've got the vision. It's your time, Marcus." So I became CEO. And the first email I sent from that shiny new title, a blind CC to one person, to Mom's subject, "Are you free to help Tyler again? Message. Unfortunately, I'll be busy running a company now. Best of luck." I didn't hear back. Not for 2 weeks. Then one night I got a call from Dad. "Your mom's feeling hurt. She says you're acting distant." Distant. I almost laughed. "Dad," I said, "when's the last time anyone asked me how I'm doing?" He was quiet. Exactly. A week later, Mom tried a different approach. She called and said, "Marcus, I just think you've always been so steady and Tyler needed more." "Needed more," I repeated. "So that justifies everything." No, she rushed. "I'm just saying you've always had your life together. He's the one who's had a hard time." That was the moment I knew she'd never get it. In her mind, struggle made Tyler more deserving. My quiet competence, it just made me forgettable. So I did what forgettable sons do. I took my name off the emergency contact list. I removed the auto-pay settings linked to their utilities. I rewrote my will, and I gave myself permission to stop performing. Next month, we're hosting a partner gala at the company. Mom called last night. Can I come? I'd love to see where you work. I paused, then smiled. Sure, I said. Because this time, she wouldn't be bringing the spotlight. She'd be watching me stand in it. I should have known they'd show up early. The gala was still being set up when my mum arrived in a pearl blazer and heels too high for the marble floors. She walked in like she owned the place, scanning every surface like she was judging its resale value. Oh wow, she said, taking in the open atrium. This is bigger than I expected. Translation, you're doing better than we thought, and we don't know how to process that. Behind her was my dad, awkward in a borrowed suit. And Tyler, smirking like he was auditioning to be the face of a startup he hadn't founded yet. I watched him spot the podium and nod at it like it was a throne waiting for him. I greeted them calmly, professionally. Glad you could make it. Mum leaned in for a hug, whispered, "We're so proud of you, sweetheart." And then immediately followed it with, "Tyler had a great idea on the way here. Can we run it by you?" Here we go. We hadn't even reached the cocktail hour before Tyler launched into his pitch. So I've been working on this app he began while swirling a glass of champagne he didn't pay for. It connects influencers with local businesses for pop-up collaborations. Think like Airbnb, but for brand events. I nodded, okay, and he grinned. I was thinking, maybe you could be our angel investor. Like to get the prototype off the ground. Mom chimed in before I could speak. It would be such a meaningful way to support your brother. It's just a soft start, maybe 50,000. I didn't laugh. I didn't flinch. I just said no. Tyler blinked. Wait, what? I'm not investing in that. But you haven't even seen the pitch deck. You haven't even made the pitch deck. Silence. My mum looked like I'd just slapped a baby. That's a little harsh, Marcus. No, I said, what's harsh is spending 15 years being called selfish while bankrolling someone else's lifestyle. They didn't take that well. Tyler walked off. Mom stayed behind. Why are you doing this here? She whispered. In front of everyone. I looked around. Everyone's here to celebrate the company I helped build. The company you never asked about. The one you told the family was some IT job. She sighed. I didn't mean anything by it. You never do, I said, but the impact's the same. That night I gave my keynote speech. I stood on the stage lights, hot on my skin, staring at a crowd of investors, employees and partners. And there in the front row sat my parents, Tyler missing. I took a breath. This company started in a basement, I said, with maxed out credit cards, microwave dinners, and people telling me I should take the safer route, that I wasn't built for risk, that I should just support someone else's dream. I let the pause settle. But here we are. Scattered applause, then building. I didn't mention names. I didn't need to. Because sometimes the truth doesn't need to scream. It just needs to stand still. Later that week, Tyler called. I let it go to voicemail. He left 5 messages in 48 hours, each one more desperate than the last. Come on, man. I'm serious about the app. You're really going to ice me out like this? Mom said you're being dramatic again. You wouldn't even be where you are without us. That last one made me laugh, out loud. In my car, alone. Because if anyone owed anyone credit, it was the reverse. The messages stopped when I replied with one sentence. Respect isn't retroactive. A month passed. Things got quiet. Then a ripple started. It began with a call from my accountant. Hey Marcus, he said, did you authorize this inquiry into your old taxes? No, why? Someone flagged your name linked to a failed LLC. 2 years old, no tax filings, address listed as your parents' home. I knew instantly. Tyler. Turns out he had tried to legitimize his app by registering a fake LLC and tying it to my name for credibility. Claimed I was a co-founder, even forged an email chain between us for investors. I stared at the screen as the documents came in. My name, my photo, my identity. Used as a stepping stool by the same person who once said, "You'll never be anything more than a backup plan." I could have buried it quietly. But I was done playing the fixer. I called our lawyer, sent every document, and then I filed a formal report of business identity fraud. Within 48 hours, the inquiry reached the state's fraud division. Tyler got a notice. His app idea dead, his accounts frozen, his reputation dented enough to sink it. The fallout wasn't dramatic. It was pitiful. Mom called me crying. "You didn't have to go this far." "He committed fraud," I said calmly. "It was just a mistake. He was trying to impress people. He was trying to ride my name to get a free future." She sniffed. "We're a family, Marcus." "No," I said. "We're a ladder, and I'm not the bottom rung anymore." Days later, Dad called. "He's hurting," he said. "Don't make this worse." "I'm not making anything. I'm finally letting consequences do their job." He sighed. "So that's it." "Unless someone has an actual apology, yeah, that's it." I started therapy the following week. My therapist asked me something simple. "Do you feel guilt for breaking the dynamic or just discomfort from losing it?" I sat there stunned, because I realized I had spent my whole life defining myself by usefulness. If I wasn't helpful, who was I? The answer, still Marcus. Still smart, still kind, still successful, just no longer available. They don't reach out much anymore. Tyler tried posting on social media about how betrayal always comes from the ones you trust. No names, but the subtext was clear. Funny how everyone in the comments took my side. One cousin messaged me privately. "I always knew they treated you differently. Thanks for showing us how to set boundaries." Another said, "Wish I had your guts. My brother's the same." Turns out I wasn't alone, just the first one to say it out loud. Next quarter, we're expanding into international logistics. I'm hiring a new assistant, promoting 2 interns who remind me of myself 10 years ago. And the Chevelle, Tyler had to sell it to pay legal fees. The buyer, I'll give you one guess. I keep it in my building's private garage now, not to show off, just as a reminder that I was never second best. I was just second to speak. 3 weeks after Tyler's little fraud fiasco blew up, I got a letter in the mail. Not a call, not a text, a literal handwritten letter. The return address, my Aunt Lenora. We hadn't spoken in over 6 years. She was my mum's older sister, a real estate agent, who had a habit of skipping family reunions and refusing to sugarcoat anything. She was the weird one, the bitter one, the divorced aunt who always had something to say. The letter started like this. "I stayed quiet longer than I should have, but you deserve to know the truth. That'll spike your blood pressure fast." She went on to explain that back when my grandfather passed, he left behind a sizable trust, one intended to be split between his grandchildren. That included me and Tyler, except it wasn't split. Mom had convinced the executor, their cousin of course, that Tyler was more in need and Marcus is already so stable. They rewrote the paperwork, redirected the disbursement, had Tyler listed as the sole heir. It had been done quietly, legally. I'd never even known there was a trust. I paid off their mortgage, and Tyler inherited $250,000 the same year. I was paying their bills while they pocketed the will, and it didn't stop there. According to Aunt Lenora, the house I grew up in, the one I thought my parents still owned, jointly, had been transferred to Tyler's name after Dad's health scare. Mom said it was for security. It wasn't. It was strategy. I reread the letter 5 times, then once more. My hands were shaking, but I wasn't surprised. Just confirmed. Everything I suspected, the unspoken rules, the favoritism, the invisible contracts of guilt, it was all true. Written in legal ink and notarized behind my back. I hadn't just been overlooked. I'd been erased. The next day, I pulled every document I could find, property records, tax filings, trust transfers, and there it was, on the county clerk's site. Tyler Landon, sole trustee and owner of both the house and the residual estate from my grandfather. Estimated assets nearly $600,000 over 6 years. I called my lawyer Malik. "Can we do anything?" "Technically," he sighed. "No, they played the game within the rules. Ethically, it's a family betrayal disguised as estate planning." "Perfect." So I didn't sue. I showed. That Friday, my company hosted a private leadership summit. It was part workshop, part celebration, part networking event for our next phase. We invited a few extended family members, including Aunt Lenora. And yes, I knew Mom and Tyler would hear about it. That was the point. During the summit, I gave a talk titled Invisible Effort: What Happens When You're Good, But Not Golden. No names, no specific events, just a clear-cutting truth. Some of us grew up being told that quiet competence wasn't worth praise. That stability meant we didn't need support. That our sacrifices were just expected, not honoured. And when we dared to want more, we were told we were selfish, dramatic, ungrateful. But here's the thing, silence isn't humility when it becomes exploitation. The room went still. A few people clapped, one teared up. Aunt Lenora, she stood, and started the standing ovation. Later that night, I found an envelope on my desk. Inside was a small photo, me age 10, standing next to my grandfather, holding the very Chevelle Tyler sold to pay legal fees. On the back in shaky pen, "For Marcus, always." I turned it over again, then again, because it hit me harder than I expected. That car was meant for me. That trust was meant for both of us. That entire narrative, Tyler as the chosen one, the golden boy, the heir, had been built on smoke mirrors and a complete rewriting of facts. I didn't need the money or the car. What I wanted, an answer. So I called my mom. She picked up on the second ring. "Marcus, I know about the trust," I said. "I know about the house, the inheritance, the paperwork." Silence. "Then who told you?" That was her first response. "Not, I'm sorry. Not let me explain. Just who told you?" "That's all you have to say." She sighed. It was for the best. Tyler needed a leg up. "I was paying your bills while you funneled an inheritance to my brother. You were doing fine. You didn't ask." "No," she snapped, "because you would have said no. And that makes it okay. It makes it necessary." I went quiet, because I'd finally heard it. The truth beneath everything. I wasn't loved less because I failed. I was respected less because I succeeded without them. Tyler called that night too. Left a voicemail. "Mom's a wreck. She thinks you're going to cut us off completely." Look, I didn't ask for all of it. I just accepted what was offered. "Can we meet?" I didn't respond, because I wasn't ready to hear excuses dressed up as compromise. Instead, I bought something. A new home, downtown, 3-bedroom, views of the skyline, more than I needed. But this time, every inch was mine. I didn't tell anyone in the family. They found out through a mutual friend's Instagram. Mom texted me the next day. "You moved." I replied with one word, "Yes." She sent back, "No invite to..." I didn't reply. "Because you don't invite thieves into the vault." Weeks passed. The company launched its new division. I took a trip to Spain. I read a book on a beach without checking my phone once. And slowly the echoes faded. No more guilt-laced messages. No more family interventions. Just quiet. Actual quiet. And then an email. Subject line, "We need to talk, please." From Tyler. I didn't open it right away. But I will. Soon. Because the next part of this story, it's not about revenge. It's about recognition. And he's finally realized the mirror reflects both ways. I didn't open Tyler's email for 3 days. Not because I was avoiding it. Because I was ready to open it from a place of power, not pain. On the 4th day, I sat down with a cup of coffee, opened my laptop, and finally read what he had to say. "Marcus, I know I don't deserve your time, but I'm asking for it anyway. Mom and Dad won't say it, but they know they messed up. I know I messed up. I didn't understand how much damage was being done until I saw the fallout, the lawsuit, the bank freeze, everything. I got used to being handed things, but I always assumed you'd be okay. You always were. That's not an excuse, it's just the truth. I'm trying to fix things. I've started paying off the trust misappropriations. I talked to a financial counselor. I've been interviewing for actual jobs, real ones. I don't expect forgiveness, but I do hope someday you'll see that I'm not the same person anymore. Tyler." I sat with it for a while, because part of me, the old part, wanted to believe it, to forgive and forget. But I wasn't that person anymore. I'd spent my entire adult life underwriting someone else's choices, their lies, their failures, and being told I was selfish when I stopped. This wasn't about one apology. It was about a pattern. One email doesn't undo years of silence when it mattered most. Still, I replied, "Tyler, I hope you're serious about rebuilding. I really do. But this isn't a movie. There's no music swelling when we hug it out. I'm not angry anymore, but I'm not walking back into the role of your fixer. We're not enemies, but we're not family the way we used to be either. That version of me doesn't exist anymore. Take care, Marcus." Weeks passed. Quiet ones. Until I got a voicemail from my mom. She sounded different. Not performative, not passive-aggressive. Just tired. "I know you don't want to talk. I'm not calling to argue. Just wanted to say I'm sorry, truly, for everything. I won't ask you to come back. I just wanted to admit that I was wrong. It should have felt like victory, but it didn't. Because when the person who hurt you finally says sorry, all you're left with is the echo of how long it took. I didn't call her back. Not out of spite, out of peace. Because you can forgive someone in your heart and still never want to hear their voice again. 2 months later, I got a letter from the attorney handling the trust fallout. Due to the reallocation agreements and Tyler's restitution payments, I was being offered a buyout option on the property that had once been secretly given to him. It was basically hush money with a ribbon on it. I declined. Not because I couldn't use the money, but because I didn't want anything that had ever been weaponized against me. I was done being tied to a legacy that never included me. Instead, I did something else. I bought land. Not inherited, not passed down, not tied to old blood. Mine. A 2-acre plot on the edge of the city, Trees Hills space. And I hired a builder. I showed him sketches I'd made in college back when I used to design dream homes as a distraction. This, I told him, is where I'm going to build something that lasts. He nodded. You want a legacy? I smiled. No, I want a beginning. Construction started 3 weeks later. Foundation first, then framework. And every time I visited the site, I felt something loosen in my chest, like air was finally reaching corners of my body I hadn't noticed were starving. One day the contractor called me over. Got something for you? He said, holding up a plaque. I'd forgotten I ordered it. It read, built by Marcus Landon, no handouts, no shortcuts, just truth. We screwed it into the frame of the front door. On the inside, because I didn't need the world to see it. Just me. Mum emailed me recently. She said she heard about the new property. Said it looked beautiful from the pictures your cousin posted. Then added, your grandfather would have been proud. I sat there staring at that line. Not angry. Just reflective. Because maybe he would have been... But I didn't build this for him. I built it for the version of me that once stood at the kids' table holding a rusted toolbox, wondering if he was ever enough. That guy, he's not wondering anymore. The last time I saw Tyler was at a tech conference of all places. He was working at a booth for a logistics company that was clearly trying to become US flashy graphics over-promising slogans, no real substance. We locked eyes. He gave a small nod. I nodded back. No hostility, just distance. Sometimes that's the healthiest ending you can hope for. So here I am, 34 years old, CEO, landowner, mentor, and finally whole. Not because I got justice, but because I stopped waiting for someone else to give it to me. The house finishes next spring. I'm designing the study with floor-to-ceiling windows, and above the fireplace, I'm hanging one thing, that old photo, me and Grandpa, next to the Chevelle I never got. A reminder that what's stolen can't always be returned, but it can be replaced with something better, built brick by brick, on your own terms. Story 3, I wasn't supposed to see it, but I did. A photo tagged on my aunt's Facebook page of all places. It was my parents' younger sister Ivy and her fiancé on a sprawling cruise deck, sun bouncing off their matching linen outfits. Drinks in hand, smiles like life was perfect. The caption, once in a lifetime family getaway? I zoomed in, read it again. Family. And yet I wasn't there. Wasn't even told. Just 2 weeks before, I'd helped Mom pay off her credit card before interest kicked in. 3 days after that, I wired Ivy $300 for pet emergency expenses. And last week, Dad asked for a little push to get the water heater fixed. That little push was $2,500. And yet there they were grinning on a ship I unknowingly helped float. I called Dad just once, didn't even know why. He answered after 2 rings. Hey, Laurel, he said like he picked up by accident. Nice trip, I said. Long pause. Yeah, well, figured we deserved a little breather. Sure, you all look happy. He cleared his throat. We didn't think you'd want to come. Didn't think or didn't care? Silence. Then he chuckled a short, bitter puff of air. Why would we bring the outsider? I didn't cry, didn't scream. I just said one word. Noted. And I hung up. That night, Mum left me a voicemail. Hey, honey, we're just waiting on the transfer. They're charging extra for some of the excursions. Can you send it tonight? Love you. Love. They were 800 miles away sailing on stolen generosity, sipping cocktails paid for by someone they didn't invite. Someone they never even considered inviting. So I did something I'd never done. I said no in my own way. I still had the booking confirmation. Months ago, Dad had temporarily used my card to lock in the reservation. I kept the receipt, quietly. Turns out that made me the primary account holder. So I logged into the cruise line's website, clicked account access, and froze everything. Bar tabs, activity passes, even their cabin door lock codes. The system pinged me with an alert access restriction in effect. Guest compliance pending. By noon, their account was on hold. By 3 p.m, I received a text from an unknown number. This is cruise line security. We need to speak with you immediately regarding a payment dispute. I didn't answer. At 5:17 p.m, my phone vibrated again, a different number. Voicemail. This is Officer Delaney from the Port Authority. We need a statement regarding a financial issue involving your family. Please return this call. Still, I didn't answer. I just stared at the screen, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled. It didn't start with the cruise. It started the day I got my first real paycheck. I was 22, fresh out of college, working customer support at a logistics company, living in a rental above a nail salon that smelled like acetone and disappointment. Mum called that same week, crying about how Dad had maxed out the heating bill. It's just a bridge loan, she said. We'll pay you back. They never did. Next it was Ivy. She dropped out of her second college in under a year, but kept saying she was in a transitional chapter. I paid for the classes anyway. I bought her groceries, covered her vet bills when she adopted a dog she couldn't afford, replaced her iPhone when it died randomly. That phone died in a margarita pitcher during a bachelorette party. I still paid the bill. At first I thought it was what good daughters did, what sisters should do, but slowly it became expected. No thank yous, no apologies, just more requests. And when I said I couldn't help with something, they made it clear I wasn't trying hard enough. You're single, Ivy once said. What else are you spending it on? Maybe saving for a future, I replied. She laughed. Okay, well, let us know when that future includes us again. What they didn't know was that I'd been keeping track. Not at first, but after Ivy forgot my birthday for the second year in a row, while still managing to send herself to Vegas for a mental reset, I started a spreadsheet. Just for me, it began with small entries, grocery runs, doctor co-pays. That one time I Ubered Mom to the ER because she didn't trust ambulances. But then it grew. Tuition refunds never returned, vacation deposits borrowed, car repairs, subscription charges. I even caught my card on their Amazon Prime once a baby registry under Ivy's name. She isn't pregnant. She just wanted the free stuff. By the time I added up the totals, it was over $41,000. I stared at that number like it was a foreign language. And yet none of them ever said thank you. They just called when the cruise froze. Are you proud of yourself? Ivy texted that night. They escorted us off the ship. I was humiliated. I replied with a screenshot of the original cruise receipt, the one with my name. No response. 3 hours later, Dad called. I let it ring. He called again and again. By the 7th missed call, I blocked him. The last message I got before I shut it all down was from Mom. We were going to invite you to something bigger, but now you ruined everything. Hope it was worth it. It was. The next morning, I walked to my favourite coffee shop and sat by the window. Ordered the same thing I always do, almond milk latte, no foam. But this time I paid for it guilt-free. No pending transfers, no one in my inbox asking for a favour. Just quiet and coffee. And the beginning of something I never had before: control. 2 days after I froze the cruise account, I got an email from Ivy. The subject line, wow, just wow. Inside one line. You could have just said you didn't want us happy. That's what she took from it, not the years of unpaid debt, not the lies, not the complete erasure of me from their lives unless a bill needed paying, just that I ruined their vacation. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my spreadsheet, the one I'd been quietly building for 3 years. Line after line of dates, names, amounts. $100 to $900 to cover Ivy's first lease. $600 for a therapy intensive she never attended. $300-400 for Mum's dental work. $2,100 for Dad's tax miscalculation. I scrolled and scrolled until my hand cramped. Total $41, $276.33. All from the outsider they didn't even invite. But here's the kicker: that number wasn't the real weight. The real weight, the silence. The unspoken way they made me feel like a transaction, not a daughter, not a sister, just the family wallet with a good Wi-Fi plan. And when I finally said enough, suddenly I was the enemy. It wasn't always like that. At least I tell myself that to sleep. Growing up, Ivy was the golden one, the baby, the charming hurricane who could do no wrong. And me, I was the serious one, the quiet kid who read too much and smiled too little. Lowe's just intense, Mum used to say at dinners, like it was a flaw. Dad never said much. He'd just nod or say, "That's our Laurel," like I was some weird inside joke, only they understood. Ivy got cheerleading and dance and piano lessons she quit after 4 weeks. I got a second-hand trumpet and no rides to rehearsal. She failed math, they hired a tutor. I got straight A's, they asked why I didn't have friends. Once in high school, I got a scholarship to a summer writing camp. All I needed was $300 for the flight. Ivy needed $300 that same week for a concert ticket in another city. Guess who stayed home? I remember sitting on the porch watching her load into her friend's car. She didn't even wave. And that was the first time I realised if I wanted anything, I'd have to get it myself. So I did. I worked 3 jobs through college, graduated with 0 debt, got a corporate job by 24. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I budgeted, saved, ate canned soup and skipped Ubers to hit my goals. Meanwhile, Ivy posted photos from Coachella. Manifesting abundance, her caption read, while she overdrafted her checking account and texted me for just a tiny buffer. I sent it every time, until one day I didn't. It was 6 months before the cruise. I told her I couldn't help. Rent was tight. Groceries were tighter. She replied in all lowercase. Wow, so you're one of those sisters now. Noted. I remember staring at that message so long the screen dimmed. That lowercase wow cut deeper than any curse. It was her way of saying you're only useful when you're giving. That was the moment I realised I'd never be seen, not really. I was the family's emergency fund, not their family. After I froze the cruise account, the calls slowed, but the whispers began. Cousins messaged me out of nowhere. "Hey, I heard what happened. You okay? Aunt Margot said you hacked their trip. You were always the level-headed one. This doesn't sound like you." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just typed the same message to all of them. Asked them who paid for the cruise. No one replied. That's when I realised they were never really curious. They just wanted to say they reached out, that they did their part. Family PR. The fallout hit a week later. It was Sunday. I was meal prepping and watching a comfort show when the knock came. Not the polite kind. The "you're gonna want to open this" kind. I cracked the door. Dad stood there, arms folded, Ivy right behind him. Mum was already halfway up the stairs. "What is this?" Laurel Mom snapped. "What's what?" "You humiliated us," she shouted, stepping inside like she still lived here. "We were escorted off the ship, in front of everyone." "Do you understand that kind of shame?" I shut the door calmly and walked to the kitchen. "Want water? You sound parched." "Don't be smart," Dad said. I'm not, I'm just asking." "You stole that cruise from us," Ivy said, her voice sharp and rehearsed. "That's actual fraud." I laughed. It slipped out honest and hollow. "You used my card. Without permission. I just closed the door you kicked open." Mum crossed her arms. "We were going to pay you back." "You say that every time," I said. "Yet here we are, again." Dad stepped closer. "You're still part of this family." "No," I said. "I'm the receipt at the bottom of your junk drawer. Useful, forgotten, tossed when it's inconvenient." They went quiet. I took a deep breath and handed them an envelope. Inside, printed records, emails, receipts, the full financial list. On the cover I wrote in marker every time you asked and every time I said yes. Dad stared. "You kept track." I met his eyes. "You didn't." They didn't say anything after that. They left like smoke. No apology, no ownership. Just a final glance from Ivy somewhere between hatred and heartbreak. But I didn't flinch. I closed the door and locked it. That was the moment I stopped hoping they'd love me the way I needed. 3 days later, I got an email from the cruise line. A confirmation that they had opened a fraud case against my parents. Apparently, after being removed from the ship, Dad tried to dispute the entire charge, claimed the booking was unauthorised, tried to erase me even from the bill. But the account was mine. The address, the email, the IP, all mine. I sent the cruise line my side of the story and every receipt. They thanked me, and they escalated it. The next email came from legal. Apparently the cruise line was suing for false claims and chargeback abuse. They also included a note you may be eligible for reimbursement pending outcome. I read it twice. They tried to erase me and ended up erasing themselves. I didn't reply to the last voicemail Dad left me, but I saved it. His voice was shaking. You went too far. You think you've won. You think this means you're better than us. And for the first time, I whispered my answer out loud. No, just freer. It's funny how fast people forget your kindness the moment you say no. After the cruise collapsed, after I froze their access, after they were marched off the ship in front of strangers holding half-sipped mimosas, I thought they'd be humiliated enough to disappear. But people like that don't retreat, they reframe. They don't apologize, they accuse. The first sign came through a blocked number. I let it ring, then another and another. I finally answered on the fifth. A deep voice, Ms. Laurel Monroe. Yes. This is Officer Taylor from the Port Financial Task Force. We're conducting an inquiry into a cruise line dispute filed under your parents' names. I froze. Then they claimed the booking was made without authorization, using their personal details. I blinked. What? We're just collecting statements at this stage, he continued. You'll be contacted by the cruise line's fraud team as well. I didn't argue. I didn't panic. Instead, I grabbed my receipts, the ones I kept in a fireproof folder labelled just in case. It had screenshots, email confirmations, bank statements, and one short video I took when Dad told me, just use your card and we'll send it back next week. Don't make it a thing. He laughed after he said that, like using me was the joke. I backed up every file onto a flash drive and walked into a lawyer's office the next day. Her name was Jasmine. She wore steel grey suits and looked like she didn't tolerate weak coffee or weaker cases. After reading through my folder, she leaned back, impressed. You documented all this? Every dollar. And they filed a fraudulent claim against you? Correct. She nodded. Then you're not just responding to a lie. You're building a counterclaim. I stared at her. A what? She smiled slowly. Ever heard of financial defamation? It's rare, but when someone accuses you of fraud and you can prove they knew it was false, it becomes actionable. My heart thudded once heavy and hard. So, I can sue? Not just sue, she said, clicking her pen. You can reclaim your name, and maybe if the evidence holds, you can watch this entire house of lies burn. By the time the hearing was scheduled, the family had already moved on, at least publicly. Ivy was back to posting mirror selfies with captions like only forward, while Mum commented, my strong girl. Dad deleted all his social media, probably didn't want anyone seeing what he couldn't explain, but word got out anyway. The cruise line began investigating. They subpoenaed chat logs from the ship's internet portal. Turns out Ivy had used the ship's guest Wi-Fi to message her fiancé. He's so easy to trick. Used his card and now he's acting like a victim. He should be grateful we let him help. Grateful? As if I should have thanked them for exploiting me. The cruise line passed the logs to my lawyer. So did the Port Authority. And suddenly this wasn't a family squabble anymore. This was fraud, documented, dated, with receipts and witnesses. And for once, I wasn't the one defending myself. The hearing was short. Too short, honestly. After everything they put me through, I expected screaming tears, maybe even some weak attempts at manipulation. But they came in quiet. Mom wore all black like it was a funeral. Ivy clung to her purse like a security blanket. Dad looked like he hadn't shaved in a week. Jasmine presented our case like a surgeon, precise, sharp, no wasted words. She handed over the timeline, the payment logs, the voicemail from Mom saying, we just need a few hundred more for the excursions, you're a lifesaver. The judge asked one question, did you use your daughter's card to book this trip? Mom said nothing. The judge repeated it. Dad cleared his throat. She offered, did you accept? Yes. Did you repay her? Another pause. No, he muttered. And then you reported her for unauthorized access. Silence. Then the judge looked at me. Ms. Monroe, would you like to respond? I stood, hands shaking, not from fear, from fatigue. I don't want revenge, I said. I just want my name back. And I sat down. The judgment was delivered within a week. They were ordered to pay $14,600 in damages, including legal fees, emotional distress, and defamation. The cruise line filed a separate civil suit. Ivy was named in both. Mom tried to call that night. I didn't answer, but I did listen. We didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought you'd understand. You've always been the strong one. That's the line that always gets used, right? You're the strong one. Translation, you can survive being used. They can't. They didn't want me strong. They wanted me silent. So I stayed silent and filed the restraining order. You know what no one tells you about standing up for yourself? It's lonely. Even when you win. Even when the verdict is fair and the damage is acknowledged and the people who hurt you finally see consequences, you don't feel triumphant. You just feel tired. Like you've been sprinting for years and now there's no one chasing you but your legs won't stop moving. That week I cancelled my family group chat. Closed old photo albums, deleted cloud backups that only reminded me of birthdays where I paid for the cake but got no card. I didn't burn bridges. They were never bridges to begin with, just trapdoors. Then something strange happened. I got a letter, handwritten, no return address, inside a single photograph. It was me and Ivy ages ago, sitting on a porch swing. I was reading a book. She was curled beside me asleep. On the back, written in shaky handwriting, I used to feel safe with you. I don't know what happened to us. I'm sorry. No name, but I knew. I didn't cry. I just put the photo in a drawer, not because I forgave her, but because for one brief moment she remembered who I used to be to her. And maybe that was enough. Maybe not, but at least it was real. 6 weeks passed. No calls, no texts, not even the silent ones. The kind of silence that used to make me anxious, checking my phone, rereading old messages, wondering what I'd done wrong now, felt like stillness. No noise, no guilt. Just me for once not apologising for breathing. I moved to a smaller apartment in a different neighbourhood. Nothing fancy. The floors creaked. The fridge made a weird humming noise every hour on the dot. But the lease was in my name. The bills came to my inbox. And I paid them without that sinking feeling that someone else would come knocking. It was my space. And it didn't ask for anything I wasn't already giving. Most mornings I walked to a nearby bakery, got the same thing, a small coffee-toasted sourdough and a seat by the window. I watched the world move around me, loud couples arguing about brunch joggers with earbuds, kids dragging backpacks too big for their shoulders. Normal life, unremarkable to most people. But to me it was everything. No family drama, no accusations, no fake emergencies disguised as connection, just air and peace. Sometimes I miss them, or at least I miss the idea of them. The version of family I held on to like a bedtime story, the one where they were proud of me, called me just to talk, invited me not for money, but for presence. That version never existed, but I loved her anyway. I loved that younger Laurel, who clung to hope and picked up every call, who believed one more deposit, one more yes might finally earn her a seat at the table. She didn't get a seat, but she built her own. And now I sit at it every morning with my toast, my coffee, and no one trying to take it away. The cruise lawsuit settled privately. I wasn't involved. Ivy ended up with a fine and a probation warning. Apparently she'd used a fake billing address on another booking and got flagged. Her fiancé left her 3 months later, quietly, no posts, no closure, just gone. Dad's small business was suspended for tax reasons. Mom started a GoFundMe, claimed they were recovering from financial abuse. That part almost made me laugh. Almost. Until I saw the comments. Strangers calling me heartless. People from her church saying I should be ashamed. Ivy chiming in with a long public post about how betrayal can come from the one you trusted most. I didn't reply. I didn't defend myself. I just reported the post and closed the browser. Let them talk. Let them tell the world whatever version made them sleep better at night. Because for once I wasn't staying up to make sure they felt okay. One night I bumped into someone I used to know, Jenna, an old co-worker from a temp job I took after college. She blinked when she saw me. "Laurel, wow, you look different." I smiled. "Better or worse?" She laughed, lighter. We caught up over lukewarm lattes. She asked about my family. I hesitated. Then I said I walked away. No explanation, no justifying, no long story. And she just nodded like she understood. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing, she said. It wasn't meant to be profound, but it stuck with me for days. Brave. I never felt brave. I felt exhausted, alone, unseen. But maybe brave doesn't look like fire and shouting. Maybe it looks like one last no. Maybe it sounds like a door closing for the final time. The letter came 2 months later. No name, just a return address somewhere in Maine. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a photo. Me age 10, standing beside Ivy at a water park. I had my arm around her shoulders, squinting in the sun. She was soaking wet laughing, clutching my hand like she needed it to stay upright. Taped to the back was a sticky note. We weren't always this way. I don't expect forgiveness. But I do remember. No signature. Just that memory dropped like a stone in a still pond. I put the photo on my fridge, not as a welcome back, as a memorial. A reminder of what I gave and what they let rot. Sometimes people ask, do you ever wish they'd apologise? And I used to fantasize about them showing up with flowers and tears, admitting everything, saying I was right, that they were sorry, that they finally saw me. But now, no. Because what I really wanted all along wasn't an apology. It was proof that I mattered to them even when I wasn't giving. They failed that test over and over, and now I don't need them to pass it. I stopped grading people who already dropped the class. Here's what I learned. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about choosing you when no one else will. Saying no isn't cruel, it's sacred. And walking away doesn't mean you hate them. It means you finally love yourself enough to stop bleeding for people who treat your scars like receipts. I didn't write this for revenge. I wrote it so someone else maybe you knows it's okay to walk, to leave the family chat unread, to skip the guilt trip, to cancel the cruise, hang up the phone, and say I'm done being useful to people who find me useless the moment I stop paying. You're not an outsider. You're the one who saw the truth and stayed long enough to confirm it. And the freedom after that, it's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. It sounds like your own breath. It feels like space in your lungs you forgot you had. It looks like peace and it wears your name.